Have you ever had to hide your greatest achievement? I have. For 25 years, I presided over courtrooms, impacted hundreds of lives, and ensured justice. But I couldn't tell my own family. Because to them, I was just a stay-at-home mom. Until my 7-year-old granddaughter saw my picture on a school trip. I hope this story touched your soul. You can support us by subscribing. You can write to me in the comments which city or country you are listening from. I'm really curious to know where you are watching from. Thank you to everyone who comments. My name is Susan Wright. I'm 68 years old and live in Springfield, Illinois, in a white-fenced house on Lincoln Boulevard. My neighbors know me as an ordinary grandmother who tends to her garden, bakes chocolate chip cookies for her grandchildren, and goes to church on Sundays, and maybe that's exactly who I am. But I used to be someone else. You ever felt like a completely different person? As if you were living two separate lives? In June 1998, when I hung my last robe at the back of the closet, I was 53 years old. That day, as I walked out of the courthouse, I didn't look back. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. I just signed my retirement papers and left quietly, because the Susan Wright my family knew was never Judge Wright. I still remember my daughter Jennifer introducing me. This is my mom, Susan. She devoted her life to us, was always at home, cooking, cleaning, and quietly carrying on after Dad died. And I would smile and nod. Because what could I say? Actually, my daughter, I served on the Illinois State Court for 25 years, handled over 2,000 cases, and for a quarter of a century, you knew nothing about it. But last Thursday, everything changed. My granddaughter Emma came home from a school trip. That little angel, 7 years old, had a brochure in her hand and something in her eyes. Confusion? Admiration? In that moment, I felt my heart stop. "Grandma," she said in that sweet voice of hers, "we went to the courthouse today at school, and your picture was there." Jennifer froze in the kitchen. The coffee cup almost slipped from her hand. "Emma, sweetie," I said, my voice trembling, "this must be a mistake." But Emma opened the brochure. And there it was, a photo from 1985. Me in my black robe, in the courtroom, with an open file in front of me. The title, Springfield's First Female Judges, Our History of Justice. Has any secret of yours ever been revealed so unexpectedly? It all began at Northwestern University Law School. It was 1969, and I was a 4-year-old idealistic, passionate student. There were 120 students in our class that year. Only 8 were women. On the first day of constitutional law class, Professor Morrison looked at me and said, "Miss Wright, do you think a woman possesses the logical reasoning ability to administer justice?" The class laughed. Some sheepishly, some openly. I stood up. My hands were shaking, but my voice was clear. "Professor Morrison, I assume you've read Portia's famous defense in The Merchant of Venice. Justice requires not logic, but mercy and understanding, and to provide that, it's not gender that matters, but character." Something changed inside me that day. I wasn't just a law student, I was a warrior. When I graduated in 1972, I found an internship at a law firm in Chicago. A small office, 2 lawyers, 1 secretary. There were no cases I wasn't assigned. Family law, divorce cases, child custody cases considered suitable for women. But I prepared for every case as if I were in the Supreme Court. I'll never forget my first case. It was the Martinez case. A mother, abused by her husband, had fled and was trying to get her children, but the system was against her. Her husband was a man with a good job, a respectable man. The opposing attorney said in court, "Mr. Martinez is a man who works for his family and pays his taxes. Mrs. Martinez, on the other hand, is an emotional, unstable woman." I stood up. "Your Honor," I said, "if working and paying taxes are the criteria for being a good parent, then calling a mother who went to the emergency room with bruises on her arms emotional is not justice, it's prejudice." We won the case. And I cried. In the bathroom of the courthouse, where no one could see me, I couldn't hold back my tears. Because this wasn't just a case. This was my purpose. So when did you find your life's purpose? In 1978, I ran for judge in Illinois. People laughed. A female judge? In Springfield? But I campaigned. I went door to door. I talked to people. And I won. At 35, I became one of the youngest female judges in Illinois history. But here's where the story gets complicated. My husband Robert never understood it. "Susan," he said on election night, "who will take care of the house? Who will look after Jennifer? Won't my dinner be ready when I come home in the evening?" And there, in that moment, I made a decision that would follow me for 25 years. "Robert," I said, "you'll only have your Robert. I won't be Judge Wright to my family. I'll just be Susan." Every morning at 6 a.m., I would get up. I would carefully fold my robe and put it at the bottom of my bag, so no one would see it. While Robert was still asleep, before Jennifer woke up, I would leave the house. At the courthouse, I was Judge Wright. Strict, just, impartial. At home, I was Susan, a quiet woman who cooked dinner, helped with homework, and listened to Robert's complaints. Have you ever felt like two different people? When Jennifer started high school, one day she came home and said, "Mom, will you come to school for career day?" My heart stopped. "Sweetie, I'm a housewife." "Exactly," she said with a look of disappointment in her eyes. "All the other kids' moms are doctors, lawyers, teachers. My mom is just a housewife." That night I cried. I buried my face in my pillow so Robert wouldn't hear. But the next day, I was in court, presiding over a divorce case. A mother was seeking custody of her children from her husband. Her husband's lawyer said, "My client works, he earns money, his ex-wife is just a housewife." "Mr. Thompson," I said, my voice icy, "you will not use the term just a housewife in this courtroom. A housewife raises a child, manages a home, builds a life. And that is far too valuable to be just. I am awarding custody to the mother." The irony was killing me. I was defending housewives in court, but at home my own daughter looked down on me. Robert died in 1985. Heart attack. Sudden, painless. I cried at his funeral. But only half of it was sadness. The other half was guilt, because now there was no one left to hide from. But I still couldn't say it. Jennifer got married. To a lawyer. David, a successful, respected man. And Jennifer was proud. "Do you understand, Mom?" she'd say. "David has a real career. Things like that didn't exist in your day." I smiled. And I stayed silent. Now let's go back to that Thursday again. Emma had placed the brochure on the kitchen table. Jennifer was staring at it, frozen. "Mom," she said, her voice strange. This must be a mistake, right?" Emma jumped in. "No, Mom. The tour guide said so. Judge Susan Wright served from 1978 to 1998. She was one of Illinois' most respected judges. And Grandma is in the photo. The same mom." "Mom, have you ever had a moment when you didn't want the truth to come out?" Jennifer sat down at the table. Her hand was shaking. "Mom, is this true? Were you a judge?" A long silence. Emma was looking at us, her eyes wide. "Yes," I finally said. My voice was breaking. "For 25 years. Jennifer's face turned bright red. 25 years? 25 years? And you never told me?" "Jennifer, No." She jumped up. "No, I don't want to hear this. I always felt inadequate because of you. When I said, 'My mom is a housewife, she didn't do anything else,' you were working in court?" Emma started crying. "Mom, why are you yelling at Grandma?" Jennifer grabbed her bag. "Emma, we're leaving." "But Mom," I said, "we're leaving." And they left. The door slammed. And I was left there, alone, in that kitchen. I couldn't sleep that night. I took out my old files. Court records, photos, awards. I had kept them all. In the back of the closet, in an old box. A photo from 1982 at the Illinois State Justice Award ceremony, standing next to the governor. An article from 1990. Chicago Tribune, Judge Wright, the woman redefining justice. A letter from 1995. That mother from the Martinez case. Judge Wright, you didn't just win my case. You gave me my life back. And there, on that dark night, I cried. But this time, it was different. Because there was nothing left to hide. Jennifer didn't call for 3 days. I didn't even hear Emma's voice. Then on Sunday evening, the doorbell rang. It was Jennifer. But she wasn't alone. With her were David, Emma, and a file. "Can we come in?" Jennifer asked, her voice tired. We went into the living room. The silence was deafening. Finally, David spoke. "Susan, I did some research. I looked into the records of the Springfield court." He placed the file on the table. 2,347 cases, he said. Over 25 years. Child custody, domestic violence, wrongful imprisonment, discrimination. And the records say that 92% of your decisions were upheld in the higher court. That's an extraordinary rate. Jennifer's eyes welled up. "Mom, why? Why didn't you tell me? Have you ever felt like there was no way to explain something?" I took a deep breath. "Jennifer, your father was a good man, but he saw my career as a threat. We argued every day. 'A woman's place is in the home,' he would say. 'A mother's job is to take care of her children.' And I tried to do both. But if I told you, it would have driven a wedge between your father and me. The family would have fallen apart. And I wanted you to have a stable family." Jennifer was crying now. "But Mom, I always looked down on you. I know," I said, "and every time it broke my heart. But it was my choice, my decision." Emma jumped up at that moment and threw herself into my arms. "Grandma, you're a superhero, a secret superhero." We all laughed. We laughed through our tears. Should I write the second part of the story, which includes the continuation of the story and the critical cases in Susan's past, the big confrontation within the family, and the special moments with Emma? The 4,000 to 5,000 word continuation will have more detail and emotional depth. David pulled some papers out of the file. "Susan, I didn't just look at the general records. I also looked at some specific cases, and one of them really caught my attention." He placed a newspaper clipping on the table. It was from 1987. The headline read, "Judge Wright's bold decision. Police officer convicted of domestic violence." Jennifer took the clipping and began reading. Her face grew paler by the second. "Mom," she said, her voice trembling. "This case. A police officer from the Springfield Police Department beat his wife. And you convicted him. No judge would have done that back then. They protected the police." "I remember," I said quietly. "The Officer Douglas case. Have you ever had to do the right thing when everyone was against you?" "How could I forget that case?" Linda Douglas, 32 years old, mother of 3. When she came to court, her eyes were swollen, her lip was split. But worst of all was the despair in her eyes. Her husband was sitting in the courtroom in uniform. His colleagues were there too, at least 20 police officers. They were all looking at Linda as if she were the guilty one. The opposing attorney stood up. "Your Honor, Officer Douglas is a respected member of this community. He has served for 12 years. He has received 2 medals for bravery. My client says he was provoked by his wife and that it will not happen again." Then he turned to Linda. "Mrs. Douglas, you're trying to ruin a man's career because of your own resentment, aren't you?" Linda didn't respond. She just bowed her head. I opened the file. Hospital reports, broken ribs, concussion. This was his 3rd emergency room visit in 6 months. "Officer Douglas," I said, looking directly at him. "Stand up." He stood up, back straight, confident. "You swore an oath to protect the peace of this community. But you're creating terror in your own home. Your medals, your uniform, your years of service. None of them give you the right to abuse a woman." The room fell silent. The police officers looked at each other. "I sentence you to 6 months in prison and 3 years probation. I also order you to stay away from your wife and children." If you wish to appeal this decision, you are free to do so. When I left the court that day, I found a note in my parking spot. It's dangerous to be a judge who isn't a friend of the police. But that night at home, I was still angry at Jennifer because she hadn't done her homework, and I was apologizing to Robert for being late with his dinner. Do you know what it's like to live in two different worlds? Jennifer was crying now. Mom, that night. I remember that night. You came home looking very tired. You said to Dad, I had a hard day. And Dad said, how hard could it be? Sitting at home cleaning all day? And you didn't say anything. I held her hand. Jennifer, that day I saved a woman's life, but I couldn't tell my own daughter about it at home. It was my choice, and I paid the price. David pulled out another file. This one's even more impressive. 1,989. The Thompson chemical plant case. The company was firing female employees when they got pregnant. You ruled against the company in that case, and the company was on the verge of bankruptcy. But the women got their jobs back, I said. And 2 years later, the same company made America's best places to work list because they had to change their policies. Emma raised her hand as if she were in class. Grandma, but why? Why didn't you tell us? You could have told us after Grandpa Robert died. Children sometimes ask the hardest questions, don't they? Emma, sweetheart, I said. Sometimes a lie goes on for so long that telling the truth becomes harder than the lie. How could I have told Jennifer? Honey, I'm sorry you looked down on me your whole life, but actually I was a judge? Jennifer hugged me. For the first time in years, she really hugged me. Mom, she said, I'm so sorry. For everything. I never tried to understand you. The next day, Jennifer came back. This time, she was calmer. Emma was with her, holding a notebook and a pen. Mom, Jennifer said, Emma's school wants a project on my hero. And Emma wants to write about you. Emma nodded excitedly. Grandma, will you tell me everything? About your first case, your hardest decision, why you wanted to be a judge? I sat down. And perhaps for the first time in my life, I truly spoke. Emma, it all started with my grandmother, Margaret. She lived in the 1922, a time when she couldn't vote. One day she said to me, Susan, men think they're doing us a favor by giving us the right to vote. But rights aren't given, they're taken. One day you'll take something, and you won't ask anyone's permission. When I started law school, most of the professors thought women shouldn't study law. You're too emotional, they said. But every day I proved that emotions are not the enemy of justice, but its complement. Emma was taking notes, her tongue sticking out, concentrating intently. Grandma, what was the hardest decision you ever made? I paused. I knew it. I always knew it. 1,994, I said. The Harrison case. Jennifer's head snapped up. Harrison? That name sounds familiar. It should, I said, because you read the newspaper articles about that case. You even asked me, Mom, is it fair for a mother to take her children away? Is there a decision in your life that you can never forget, that haunts your dreams every night? Sarah Harrison, 28 years old, mother of 2 children. Her husband, a wealthy businessman. Divorce case. Custody battle. Sarah's crime, she had undergone treatment for depression. Her husband's lawyer said in court, My client is a stable, successful, reliable father. His wife, on the other hand, is an unstable woman who has undergone treatment for mental illness. It's clear what's best for these children. Sarah sat there, eyes downcast. She wasn't even fighting back. I read the documents. Sarah had suffered from postpartum depression. She had received treatment. She had recovered. She was taking wonderful care of her children. But in the system, a woman seeking psychological help was considered a weakness. I made my decision. I'm granting custody to the mother. The courtroom was in shock. The husband's lawyer jumped to his feet. Your Honor, this decision is the right decision. I cut him off. Mrs. Harrison was strong enough to ask for help. She was aware enough to seek treatment. And she was brave enough to fight for her children. If a mother knows how to take care of herself for her children, she is the best mother. But the story didn't end there. 2 days later, Mr. Harrison's firm began pressuring the court. The mayor called. The state senator sent a letter. And then the threats came. Judge Wright, if you don't withdraw this decision, your career will be over. But I didn't back down. Sarah Harrison is still with her children today. Her children are going to college, and every year she sends me a thank you card. Emma looked at me with shining eyes. Wow, Grandma, you're a real superhero. Jennifer was crying silently. Mom, I remember that time. Someone sent a threatening letter to our house. You told me, it's just a silly prank. I was protecting you, I said. I was always protecting you. David leaned forward. Susan, I found something else. They want to make a documentary about you. The Illinois Legal History Association. They want to interview you, document your old cases, tell the story of the struggle of female judges in your era. I smiled. Will I be famous at 75? It's never too late, said Jennifer. It's never too late. The following week, a woman came to my door. She was in her 60s, elegant, with a familiar sparkle in her eyes. Judge Wright, she said, do you remember me? I looked at her for a moment. Then, Linda? Linda Douglas? She smiled. My last name isn't Douglas anymore. Linda Martinez. I remarried, this time to a good man. I invited her in. We sat down. I made tea. I saw the newspaper article, she said, about Emma's school project, how she found out you were a secret judge, and I felt I had to come. Has anyone ever thanked you years later in your life? Judge Wright, that is. Susan, you saved my life that day, not just with your decision. As I was leaving the courtroom, you stopped me. Do you remember? I remembered. Linda was crying, alone, in the hallway. I held her. Linda, I said, you are strong. Never forget that. Those words, Linda said now, those words kept me alive. I raised my children. I sent them to college. And now I work at a shelter. I help women who have experienced violence. Because one day, a woman told me, you are strong. And I believed her. After Linda left that day, I cried again. But this time, it was tears of joy. In the days that followed, more people began to come. The Martinez family, the mother from that first case, her children are now adults with families of their own. One of the women fired from the Thompson chemical factory. She was now the company's CEO. Sarah from the Harrison case. She was there with her 2 children. They all came. They all thanked me. And I saw the true meaning of my work for the first time in my life. Emma's school organized another trip to the Springfield courthouse. This time, there was a special guest, me. 50 children were sitting in the courtroom. Emma was in the front row, full of pride. Children, said their teacher, Mrs. Peterson, today we have a very special guest. Judge Susan Wright served in this court for 25 years, and today she will tell us about justice, courage, and following our dreams. I stood up. My hands were shaking. Funny, isn't it? I've presided over thousands of cases, but speaking in front of 50 children scared me. Hello, children, I said. The question I'm asked most today is, why did you keep this a secret? And I'll give you my honest answer. Because I was afraid. The children were surprised. Was an adult talking about fear? I was scared because back then, people didn't believe a woman could be both a mother and a judge. People said, you have to choose. But I chose both, and it was very hard. A child raised his hand. A little boy, maybe 6 years old. Judge, do you regret it? Do you regret the biggest decision of your life? I paused. I took a deep breath. Do I regret it? Yes and no. I regret it because I couldn't be honest with my daughter, because I felt I had to hide myself. But I don't regret it because I changed the lives of hundreds of people. And if I had to live it again, maybe this time I would be braver. I would be proud to be both Judge Wright and Susan Wright. But most importantly, I looked at the children. You don't have to hide anything. Be smart, be brave, be kind, be strong. Be all of those things. Because the world has changed, and you are the heroes of that change." The children clapped. Emma jumped up, ran to me, and hugged me. "Grandma," she whispered, "I'm so proud of you." 3 months later, the documentary crew arrived. Cameras, lights, microphones. My home had turned into a small film set. The director was a young woman. Her name was Rachel. "Judge Wright," she said, "your story is not just your story. It is the story of thousands of women, women who are hidden, suppressed, belittled, but who still fight." During the interview, we opened my old files. We showed the photos, documents, letters. Rachel paused at one photo. 1,985, in front of the courthouse. 3 female judges stood together. "Who are they?" she asked. "My comrades in arms," I said. "Margaret Chen, Victoria Rodriguez, and me." At that time, there were only 7 female judges in Illinois, and we protected each other. "Is Margaret still alive?" I shook my head. "We lost her to cancer 10 years ago. But on the day she died in her hospital bed, she held my hand and said, 'Susan, promise me you'll tell your story.' And I promised. But I couldn't keep it because of fear, until Emma brought that brochure home." Have you ever kept a promise you made to someone years later? The documentary team also interviewed some people from the old cases. Linda Martinez, Sarah Harrison, the women at Thompson Chemical. They all spoke, they all cried, they all thanked us. And finally, Jennifer appeared on screen. "My mother," she said to the camera, her eyes teary. I underestimated her my whole life. I thought she was just a housewife. But the truth is, she was a hero. She served justice during the day, and at night she read me fairy tales. And I am grateful to her, because she taught me the greatest lesson. Being strong isn't about being silent. Sometimes the strongest people are the quietest. The documentary was completed under the title Secret Justice, the Story of Judge Susan Wright. The premiere was at the Springfield Community Center. The hall was packed. Former colleagues, people from my cases, court staff, journalists, and of course, my family. Jennifer, David, Emma. The lights went out. The film began. Opening scene. Springfield Court, 1,978. A young woman puts on her robe. Me. Voiceover. This is Susan Wright's story. But it's really no woman's story. It's the story of women who hide, fight, win, but never celebrate. The film continued. My cases, my struggles, my double life. The most emotional moment was Jennifer's speech. Everyone in the room was crying. When the film ended, there was a long silence. Then, a standing ovation. Everyone stood up. Rachel took the microphone. "Judge Wright, please come to the stage." I walked up. My legs were shaking. "Judge Wright," Rachel said. "Finally, what would you like to say to today's young women?" I took the microphone. I looked out at the room. So many faces. So much hope. "I didn't come here to teach you to live with lies," I said. "I'm here to teach you to live with truth. I hid myself my whole life because I was afraid. Afraid of being rejected, judged, abandoned. But today I tell you, don't hide yourselves. If you're smart, be smart. If you're strong, be strong. If you're ambitious, be ambitious. And never, ever, ever define yourself with the word just." I wasn't just a housewife. I was a judge and a mother and a woman. All of them at once. And you can be all of them at once too. The room stood up again. This time, there were shouts. Emma ran to my side. "Grandma, you're a movie star." I laughed. "No, sweetie, I'm just myself." After the documentary, everything changed. Newspapers wrote about my story. TV channels wanted interviews. Universities sent speaking invitations. But most importantly, hundreds of letters came from women. One letter was from a nurse in Arizona. "I secretly published a book of poetry. My family doesn't know. But after hearing your story, I decided to tell them. Another letter from a teacher in Florida. I've been married for 40 years. My husband doesn't even know I have a college degree, because he said it's not necessary at the time. But this week, I'm going to tell him. And the most impressive one from a young girl. I'm 16 years old. My family doesn't want me to be a lawyer. They say girls don't become lawyers. But I watched your story, and I'm still going to be a lawyer. Have you ever realized that your words have changed someone's life? One day Emma brought her school assignment. It was for the My Hero project. She got an A+. In the project, she had told my story, but at the end, she had written, "My grandmother taught me that heroes aren't always silent. Sometimes the loudest heroes are the ones who had to stay silent for a long time, because their silence makes them stronger. And one day, when they speak, everyone listens." I cried. Again. But I wasn't ashamed anymore. A year later, the Springfield court invited me for an official visit. The current chief judge, a young woman named Sarah Kim, greeted me. "Judge Wright," she said, "we've prepared something special for you." She led me to the third-floor corridor of the courthouse. There was something new on the wall. A portrait. My portrait. Below it read, Judge Susan Wright, 1978 to 1998, the woman who quietly upholded justice. "But," said Sarah Kim with a smile, "you're not silent anymore." There were other portraits in the corridor. Margaret Chen, Victoria Rodriguez, and other female judges. "After your story," said Sarah, "we did some research, and we learned how many women had worked silently during that time. Now we're honoring them all." Emma squeezed my hand. "Grandma, look, you're on the wall." "Yes, sweetie," I said. "I'm on the wall now." A few weeks later, there was a career day at Emma's school, and this time, Jennifer invited me. "Mom," she said on the phone, "please come, and please come as Judge Wright." That day, I pulled my robe out from the back of the closet. For the first time in 25 years, it was still sleeping. I went to the school. Jennifer and Emma were waiting at the door. "Grandma," Emma shouted, "you look so cool." I entered the classroom. 30 children were looking at me curiously. "Hello," I said. "I'm Judge Susan Wright, and I'm here to talk to you about justice, courage, and most importantly, being yourself." I spoke for an hour. About my cases, my struggles, my mistakes. A child asked, "Judge, if you could start over, what would you do?" I smiled. I would do the same thing, but this time, I wouldn't hide, because now I know there's nothing to hide. Being strong isn't something to be ashamed of. Being smart isn't something to apologize for. And being successful is something to celebrate. When the lesson ended, the children came up one by one. Some asked for photos. Some asked for autographs. Some just hugged me. A little girl, perhaps 7 years old, approached timidly. "Your Honor," she said, "when I grow up I want to be like you." I knelt down and looked at her. "Sweetie, not like me. Be yourself. But be the best version of yourself. Deal?" She nodded and ran off. Jennifer came over to me. "Mom, thank you, for today, for everything." "I thank you," I said. "You forgave me." "No, Mom," she said. "You taught me how to forgive." That night, I wrote a letter to Emma. I gave it to Jennifer, to open when she turned 18. The letter read, "Dear Emma, if you're reading this, you're 18 now, a woman, and I'm probably a very old grandmother. There are so many things I want to tell you, but the most important is this. Life will present you with two paths. One is easy, the other is hard. One is acceptance, the other is being yourself. I chose the easy path my whole life. I hid, I conformed, I kept quiet. But you live in a different world. You don't have to fight the battles I fought. But you will have new battles. And my only advice to you is this: never hide. If you're smart, show it. If you're strong, use it. If you're ambitious, pursue it. And if someone tells you, this isn't for women, Smile and do it anyway. I hid for 25 years, and I regret it. But I'm also proud, because in those 25 years, I changed hundreds of lives. And maybe, even by hiding, I made a difference. But you don't have to hide. You can speak up. You can say, I'm a judge, or I'm a doctor, or I'm a president, and no one can stop you. Remember, Emma, silence is sometimes strength, but a voice is always courage. I love you, my granddaughter, and I fought for your future. Now it's your turn. With endless love, Grandma Susan. 6 months after the documentary screening, the Illinois Women's Rights Association asked me to speak at a conference in Chicago, in a large hall, with over 500 attendees. Jennifer and Emma came with me, David too. For the first time, we were going somewhere as a complete family. While getting ready backstage, Jennifer held my hand. Mom, are you nervous? I'm dying of fear, I said. This is much harder than making a decision in court. Emma laughed. But Grandma, you're a superhero. Superheroes don't get scared. I crouched down and looked at her. Sweetie, superheroes are always scared, but they still do what they have to do. That's what makes them superheroes. The moment you face your fear is the moment you feel truly strong, isn't it? When I stepped onto the stage, the spotlights blinded me. But then I saw the women in the audience. Young, old, all ages. They were all looking at me. With hope. Good evening, I said. My voice was trembling but clear. My name is Susan Wright, and I've been around for 75 years, but I've only been truly living for the past year. The room fell silent. Let me tell you a secret. Success is not about hiding. Success is about being seen. I learned this too late. But you are younger, smarter, braver. It's not too late for you. For the next hour, I talked, not just about my cases, but about my feelings, my fears, my regrets, my victories. In 1982, I said, a woman came to me. Her husband was beating her. She was thinking of going to court but was afraid. If the judge is a man, he won't believe me, she said. If the judge is a woman, she'll see me as weak. And I told her, I am a woman, and I am a judge, and I believe you. That woman is here today, somewhere in this room. Linda, would you stand up? Linda Martinez stood up. The room applauded. Linda, I said, your courage was my courage. Every day I came to court, I came for women like you, and even if I remained anonymous, you made me strong. When the conference ended, people came up to me one by one. They shared their stories, thanked me, hugged me. Then, at the end of the line, an old man was standing, in his 82nd maybe. His face was familiar, but, Judge Wright, he said. His voice was trembling. I'm Officer Douglas. The world stopped. Has a ghost from your past ever come back to haunt you? Officer Douglas, Linda's ex-husband. That case, 1987. I came to apologize, he said. Jennifer came over to me, in a protective manner. Mom, I raised my hand. It's okay. Officer Douglas continued. That day, in court, I was very angry with you. I hated you for years. I thought you ruined my career. But then I went to therapy in prison, and I understood. You didn't ruin my career. I ruined my own career. And more importantly, I ruined my family. His eyes were filled with tears. Linda is happy now. My children are happy. I'm alone, and I deserve it. But I wanted to tell you, the decision you made that day was the right one, and I apologize to you. There was a long silence. Mr. Douglas, I finally said, your apology is accepted, but the one you should really be apologizing to isn't me. It's Linda and your children. Have you reached out to them? He nodded. A few years ago, Linda forgave me. My children. We're still working on it. Then, I said, you're on the right path. And I wish you success." He left. Jennifer hugged me. "Mom," she said. "How? How did you forgive him?" "Because," I said, "justice isn't revenge. Justice is healing. And if he's healed, I'm happy." A few weeks later, Emma's school organized a community service project. Emma had an idea. "Grandma," she said excitedly, "I want to start a program. It's called Secret Heroes. We'll find people in the community who are hidden, unknown, but doing important work, and we'll honor them." My eyes welled up. "Emma, that's a wonderful idea. And you? Will you help me?" Of course I helped. Within a few months, Secret Heroes had become a small movement in Springfield. Emma and her friends collected stories. A 70-year-old woman had quietly distributed food to the homeless for 40 years. No one knew. A retired teacher was providing scholarships to children out of her own salary, anonymously. A firefighter was volunteering to teach children to read and write outside of work hours, secretly. At the end of each month, we held a ceremony at the community center. We honored the secret heroes. And every time, the hall was packed. Have you ever thought about how many unsung heroes there are in society? One day, Emma said she had found a woman. "Grandma, you absolutely must meet this woman." Her name was Dorothy Chen. She was 68 years old, and she was Margaret Chen's daughter, my old judge friend's daughter. "Dorothy," I said, hugging her. "I miss Margaret so much." "Me too," she said. "But thanks to Emma's program, I learned something about my mother. My mother wasn't just a judge. She also secretly founded an orphanage. In China. No one knew." I was shocked. Margaret never mentioned that. "Because," Dorothy said, "she was secretive, like you. But now, thanks to Emma, my mother's story will be told." That night, I sat at home thinking. Margaret, Victoria, me. We were all secret heroes. But why? Why did so many women feel the need to hide? Emma came over to me. "Grandma, are you sad?" "No, sweetie," I said. "I'm just thinking. In your generation, no one has to hide, and that's our greatest victory." Northwestern University, my old school, invited me to speak at the graduation ceremony 55 years later, back on the same campus. Jennifer, David, and Emma came with me. As we walked around campus, everything was the same yet different. "In that building," I said, pointing to Emma, "Professor Morrison asked me, 'Can a woman be a real judge?'" "What did you say?" Emma asked. I told him about Portia. "But now," I said with a smile, "now I would tell him, not only can I be one, I will be the best one." At the graduation ceremony, there were thousands of students. Young faces, bright eyes, endless hope. When I stepped onto the podium, my heart was pounding wildly. "Dear graduates," I said, "I was here in 1969, just like you, young, ambitious, scared. But unlike you, I believed in something, that I had to hide to be successful. And I hid for 25 years. I hid my career. I hid my success. I kept my happiness inside. But I'll tell you this, hiding may seem safe, but it's actually the most dangerous thing. Because when you hide, you not only lose yourself, but you also prevent the world from learning from you." I paused and looked around the room. "Today, the only diploma I can give you as graduates is this. Be yourself. Be vocal. Be visible. If you are a woman and want to be a leader, be a leader. Don't apologize. If you are a man and you are sensitive, be sensitive. Don't be ashamed. If you're different, be different. Don't hide. Because the world needs visible heroes, not hidden ones." The room stood up. Applause, cheers, tears. After the ceremony, dozens of students came up. One asked, "Judge Wright, what do you think is the biggest struggle for women today?" I thought, we are no longer fighting laws, we are fighting mindsets. The laws have changed, but the idea in people's heads that women can't do this still exists. And your job is to break that idea. When I got home, Dorothy Chen had brought a package. "Susan," she said, When my mother died, I found some letters. One is for you. I opened the package. A letter in Margaret's handwriting. Dear Susan, if you're reading this, I'm no longer here. And you're still hiding, aren't you? I know you, Susan. You were my best friend. And I know your biggest secret, the fear of fear. You're not afraid of failing. You're afraid of succeeding and then being alone. You think, if everyone knew the real me, wouldn't they stop loving me? But my dear friend, the truth is, people don't love you for who you hide. They don't know the real you. You gave them a fake persona, and they loved that persona. You'll never know if they would love the real Susan, because you never showed them the real Susan. I hid my own story too. The orphanage, my work in China, my day and night struggles. No one knew. And now, on my deathbed, I regret it. Because I didn't tell my story. And maybe my story could have inspired someone else. You still have time, Susan. Please, don't make my mistake. Please, tell your story. I love you, my friend. Margaret. I cried. I cried for a long time. Jennifer came to me, hugged me. Mom, she said, Margaret was right. But now you're telling your story. She's watching you with pride. Has any friend's words ever changed you after their death? A year later, there was a major change at the Springfield court. They launched a new program, the Secret Heroes Scholarship Program. It was Emma's idea, but now it was a statewide movement. Every year, they awarded scholarships to 10 people who quietly served the community, and I was a jury member. The first year, the applications were very impressive. A nurse who had provided health care to the homeless after work for 30 years. An engineer who secretly installed clean water systems in rural areas. A teacher who had used her own money to give free lessons to hundreds of children. But one application particularly caught my attention. Her name is Maria Rodriguez. She is 45 years old. She is a cleaning worker. But what she wrote in her application was shocking. I worked as a night cleaning worker for 20 years at the Springfield courthouse. Every night, while cleaning the empty courtrooms, I would read the cases. I would study the files. And at home, I would teach my own children law. Now, I have 2 children. Both are lawyers. And I never told them. I taught them everything they know, from court files. My eyes welled up. I need to meet this woman. We invited Maria to court. When she came, I recognized her. Of course I did. She was the woman who cleaned my office. For 20 years. Maria, I said. Do you remember me? She smiled. Of course, Judge Wright. I cleaned your office every night. And one day I saw a note on your desk. It said, Justice is not afraid of silence. That note changed me, because I was serving justice in silence, and that was enough. That day, we didn't just give Maria a scholarship. We also offered her a job, to work as a legal advisor at the Springfield Community Center. Even though she wasn't a licensed lawyer, her experience was invaluable. How many Mariahs are there in society? How many secret teachers? How many secret healers? How many secret heroes? The years flew by. Emma grew up. She graduated from high school, and she was accepted into college, Northwestern University, law school. She came to me holding her acceptance letter. Grandma, I got in. To your school. We hugged, we cried, we laughed. Emma, I said, are you going to be a lawyer? No, Grandma, she said with a smile. I'll be a judge, like you. But I won't hide like you did. Everyone will know. And I'll carry your name. Emma Wright, future judge. That night, Jennifer and I sat in the garden, drinking wine. Mom, said Jennifer, you know, I still feel guilty for not knowing you all these years. No, I said, there's no guilt now, only the future, and Emma. Emma is our future. She won't hide, because we taught her not to hide, and maybe that's my greatest achievement. Not just being a judge, but as a grandmother, teaching my granddaughter courage. At 78, I received an unexpected call. It was from the Illinois State Attorney General. Judge Wright, he said. "We have a special request. We want you to serve as a consultant on a very important case. The case, statewide domestic violence reform. New laws were to be enacted, and they needed experienced judges." "I'm retired," I said. "It's been 25 years. But your experience is invaluable. Please, consider it." Jennifer looked at me. "Mom, you should do it. This will be your last case." And I accepted. For 6 months, we worked with the team. We drafted new laws, automatic protection orders in domestic violence cases, mandatory special training for police officers, free legal support for victims, trauma therapy for children, and most importantly, the Linda Law, named after Linda Martinez. Special protection so that women who experience violence do not lose their jobs. When the bill was presented to the state assembly, I was there. Linda was there. Sarah was there. Women from Thompson Chemical were there. All of us. One of the assembly members asked, "Judge Wright, why do you think these laws are necessary?" I stood up. It was the last time I would speak in a courtroom. "Honorable members," I said, "for 25 years, I have seen the tears of hundreds of women, the fear of hundreds of children, the breakdown of hundreds of families. And each time, the system failed them, because the system did not take violence seriously. These laws are a belated apology, but they're better than nothing, and if these laws save even one life, I can die in peace." The law passed. Unanimously. Linda came on stage, hugged me. "Susan, you're truly an angel." "No, Linda," I said. "I was just a woman, trying to do what needed to be done. In secret. But now everyone knows. This story will end on a Sunday afternoon in the garden. I'm 80, Emma is 21. Emma is sitting next to me with her law textbooks. "Grandma," she says, "I have a question for you, but I want an honest answer." "I'm always honest," I say with a smile. "Have you never truly regretted it? For hiding?" I pause. I listen to the birds, the wind, life. "Emma," I say finally, "regret is a complicated thing. I regret hiding, but at the same time, that hiding made me strong. Because even when no one was watching, I did what was right. Even when no one would applaud, I upheld justice. And maybe that's true heroism. But you're different. You won't hide. You'll speak out, and the world will hear you." Emma leans her head on my shoulder. "I'm proud of you, Grandma." "I'm proud of you too, granddaughter. I'm proud of you too." Last message. As the sun sets, we sit in the garden. A grandmother, a granddaughter, 2 generations, but the same spirit. And I know that Emma won't hide like I did, because I fought so that she wouldn't have to hide. Sometimes our greatest achievements happen in silence, but eventually, the silence ends, and the story is told. This is my story, the story of Judge Susan Wright, but really, it's the story of every silent woman, every hidden success, every concealed courage. And now, it is no longer hidden. Let me ask you one last question. What is your secret success? That moment no one knows about but you are proud of? That decision? That courage? Perhaps the time has come. Perhaps the end of hiding has arrived. Because the world is waiting to hear your story.